Welcome to the Feeling Better podcast. My name is Maria, and I'm the host of this podcast and the author of the book, The Feeling Better 10-4 Program, which can also be found on Amazon. Today, I'll be reading from Week 5, Chapter 5. Hey, good buddy. Congratulations on your 1-month gambling-free anniversary. How are you feeling? Are you hanging in there? Feeling a bit more like your old self? Are you feeling positive about your future? If you're doing great, I'd love to hear it. Shoot me an email. My email address again is maria@thefeelingbetter.com, or you can find me at my website with a form. If you're not doing so great, I want to hear from you too. Maybe I can give you some encouragement or support if you're feeling stuck at the 1-month mark. Week 5, Battle Plan. The Enemy's Playbook. You can keep it a secret. Up until this point, I haven't talked about sharing your problem with anyone else. If you're a Christian, believe me, I understand. Christians aren't supposed to fall into a gambling addiction. I mean, we aren't even supposed to curse, let alone gamble. But here I am, battling a gambling addiction. I truly felt at first like I was the only one in my position suffering in this way. I thought to myself, how many other Christian middle-aged men or women living on a country homestead lost all their money to an online gambling addiction? The answer was, probably more than I realized. I read a statistic just the other day that stated gambling is now the fastest-growing addiction in America, even more so than alcohol or drugs. I don't know if that's true, but if it is, then there are a lot more people like me out there than I think there are. I mentioned before that there were no Gamblers Anonymous meetings near me, and that I didn't have any desire to sit in on a group Zoom call. Living in a small town with a small population, I certainly couldn't tell anyone at my church because word would get around. Small communities and even family can often be gossipy and hurtful, even with the best intentions. My husband was involved in some sensitive work projects with local people, and I just didn't have the energy or the mental capacity to deal with the stigma and the gossip. I wished desperately that I had one of those big mega churches in a nearby city that I could go to, where I could join a small group or a recovery meeting and no one would know who I was. On top of that, the devil kept telling me that as soon as I let the cat out of the bag and told someone, my life would be over. I'd be forever tarnished. My husband would leave me, and I'd be left on my own to deal with this. I believed I had to keep this all a secret. Nothing could be further from the truth, dear friends. Remember how in the last episode I described that day when I won the jackpot, danced at the park on the trails, and then lost all of it the same night? After the incident with the howling wind and the angels and demons battling out their chants around me as I lay sick and shattered on the cement floor of the garage, I woke up the next morning overcome with guilt and shame. 1,000 times I thought to myself, if I could just turn the clock back, if I could just turn back the clock 24 hours, I would do it differently. I wouldn't be in this mess. I wouldn't gamble my winnings if I could have a do-over. But of course, we can't turn the clock back. That's the one single thing we gamblers can never do. All we can do is move forward. All that night, I prayed and prayed for a miracle. Maybe it didn't really happen. Maybe that money would still miraculously be in my player bank somehow. Maybe a letter would be in my mailbox, telling me someone named me their beneficiary in their life insurance. Maybe, just maybe, this was some kind of cruel joke that someone was playing on me, or I'll wake up and find it was all a nightmare, that it wasn't really reality after all. But no special miracle happened to save me from the financial cliff I was teetering over. The impact was going to hurt, and it was going to break me. That much I knew. Or I guess a better analogy is that the reality of my situation felt like a massive boulder on my shoulders that I just didn't have the strength to bear. After gambling away my big jackpot win, the guilt and shame weighed so heavily on me. I felt like I was having one long anxiety attack that just wouldn't go away. The burden of what I'd done was too crushing. My brain felt like it was going to explode. I knew it was bad, and I knew I had to finally tell my husband. He had a right to know what I'd done to our finances. He'd put his trust in me all these years to pay our bills and manage our finances responsibly, and now here we were, destitute because of my gambling. I couldn't keep it from him any longer. The next evening, while I was in the shower praying, the shower is one of those places where I pour my heart out to God, I knew I had to confess. That realization scared the crap out of me. I scrubbed my face with tears streaming down my cheeks. Why was this happening to me? Why? And the worst of it wasn't even over yet because I knew what had to be done. I felt so sick with dread. I was panicked at the thought of it. I knew my husband would go ballistic. I got into my pajamas, dried my hair, went into the bedroom, and sat there on the bed thinking about what I could say that would be the gentlest way to break it to him. But there wasn't anything gentle about the bomb I was going to drop. We were the kind of people that never fought. Honestly, we just didn't. My husband is the most easygoing, jocular, steady Eddie kind of guy you'd ever meet. But he's also an alpha. He worked out and was big and strong, both mentally and physically. There was a lot of testosterone still left in this man, even at 50. Finally, I couldn't stand it another minute. I'd procrastinated enough. If I waited any longer, I'd be sick to my stomach from the sheer anxiety of it all. Taking a deep breath, I called him into the bedroom. Innocently enough, he walked in and looked at me expectantly. I said in a voice so shaky I couldn't believe the words even came out, "I have something to tell you. I have an addiction and it's bad. It's really bad." He stared at me, stunned for a minute. His face turned white. "What? What do you mean? Addiction to what? Adderall? Pornography?" I began to cry, shaking my head in shame. I couldn't look him in the eye. "No, I wish it was pornography or Adderall. This is worse. It's way worse." He just stood there. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see him standing over me, his chest heaving in and out as he began to breathe heavily. "What's worse than Adderall or pornography? What is it?" I began sobbing then, full on crying. "Online gambling? I got caught up in online casino gambling." "Oh my God," he said, immediately backing up. He hit the dresser hard, but didn't seem to notice. "How much did you lose?" I couldn't answer. I just continued to cry. "How much did you lose? Answer me." "All of it. I lost all of it." I glanced up at him and saw his face go from white to deep red, a vein popping out on his temple as he began to process what I just said. "Tell me," he said, his voice husky and almost growling. "What did you lose? What did you gamble? All the money in our checking account? Our savings?" I nodded, wiping my eyes furiously, unable to catch my breath. He knew immediately all the right questions to ask. "What about the credit cards? Did you max those out too? What about the cash in the safe? The gold? The silver?" I couldn't believe he even thought to ask about that. We hadn't been rich by any means, but for the last 5 years, we've been slowly adding to our emergency fund in the office safe. Nothing crazy, about $1,000 in cash and roughly $2,000 in gold and silver coins. But I'd spent it all, cashed it all in. Our safe was empty now. I just sat there, not saying a word. He roared. "What the F is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? How the hell did that even happen?" My husband never cussed or swore, but the F word flew out of his mouth in an explosion of fury without any hesitation. He got right up in my face. I could feel his hot breath on me as I squeezed my eyes shut, murmuring, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, over and over again while I cried harder than I've ever cried in my entire life. Are you still gambling? He asked me. I didn't know what to say to that. Was I? Not at that moment, but technically I still would have if I had any more money to deposit. I didn't answer that one either. He knew what that meant. I swear I didn't know how I was ever going to be able to look him in the eye again. When I dared glance up, I saw through my tears that he'd backed away again, his fist curled up in a ball. He wanted to hit something, I realized. I knew that he would never hit me, not even under this circumstance. But he was going to hit something. I prepared myself for the inevitable hole in the drywall that would surely appear in a few seconds. But the punch never came. Week 5, Battle Plan, God's Intel. The truth will set you free. Folks, I truly apologize if that story caused some heartache or was triggering. There is a happy ending to this tragic scene. My husband, dear sweet soul that he is, loves God. And because he loves God, he loves me. Even after several attempts at interrogation, I couldn't answer any of his questions. I was too racked with pain. I sobbed so uncontrollably that I couldn't even catch my breath. Have you ever seen a baby or a toddler cry so hard they look like they might implode from the intense meltdown? That was me. My husband couldn't take seeing me cry that hard. Never before has he ever seen me close to being that upset. No one had. He's barely even seen me cry. I just wasn't a crying type of gal, and I rarely got overwrought or distressed. Don't get me wrong, I can get irritated or annoyed with the best of them. I am a wife, after all. But it takes a lot to rattle me. Plus, I'm really good at keeping my emotions between me and God. By the end of that night, we were laid up in bed together, talking it out. For hours, he held me close while he listened to me tell my story. He attempted his best to comfort me, all while still trying to digest the implications of what I'd confessed. I was so grateful for that night. I'm still so grateful for that night. I know some people don't have that kind of unconditional love and support. I promise you I'll never take it for granted. I know it's going to be different for everyone, but there's a reason why I'm leaving the whole confessing thing here until week 5. Now, listen to me. If you're still in the depths of your gambling addiction and you cannot stop, even if you've listened up until this point of the podcast, go ahead and tell your spouse or your partner whenever you need to, however you need to. Don't wait. If you need help and support because you can't take it anymore, or you're in deep and you're having suicidal thoughts, please tell someone. But for those of you who have stopped gambling and have still kept it from your spouse or your partner, it's time to tell them. Here's the thing about telling them now. When you confess your addiction, it's past tense. One of the big regrets I have is not telling my hubby sooner. First, it could have saved us financially. We wouldn't be quite so deep in the money pit as we are right now. Second of all, waiting until I was at my lowest point and most desperate moment really scared him. Like, seriously scared him. I was sobbing with an intensity I didn't even know I was capable of. I know that really freaked him out. I would have much rather sat him down and said, Babe, I have something to tell you that's serious. I had a gambling problem. Had, meaning it's in the past. There were a few things that happened over the summer that nudged me into gambling apps, and I fell into compulsive gambling behavior. I've messed things up badly financially, but I'm going to own it. I got us into it, so I'm already working on a plan to get us out of it. I've also already sought help and have been completely gamble-free for several weeks now. But I had to come clean, and I really need your love and support right now. Or something to that effect. See the difference? I mean, think about it. Imagine for a sec that your husband or wife, boyfriend or girlfriend, or even son or daughter came to you with a confession that they were addicted to heroin. Imagine them approaching you by dropping a bomb like I did, in the kind of mental state I was in at that moment, all sobbing and hyperventilating and on the verge of a complete and total breakdown. It would freak you out, right? Now, imagine instead your loved one sitting you down and telling you calmly, rationally, and pragmatically about their addiction and making assurances that it was in the past and that they're working on it. And you could tell by their clear-headed honesty and direct eye contact that they were telling the truth. Which way would you prefer to hear it? Which scenario would allow you to feel compassion, love, and strength rather than anger, fear, and resentment? That, folks, is why we waited until week 5. No more lies, no more hiding. Because you love your significant other, you want to be honest and tell them the truth. You had a gambling addiction. You are not gambling anymore. And despite the losses, you do have a plan in place for getting you back on track. In fact, as a result of this, you've got a new appreciation for life and every dollar earned. This is your opportunity to be a better steward of the gifts God has blessed you with. And the top of that list of gifts is your spouse. The devil is going to do all he can to convince you that the person or people you love the most and who love you the most are going to turn their backs and leave you. Here's a little truth. No, actually, it's a big truth. And it's a quote that's been floating around forever, since the cheesy movies from the 1980s. If you love someone, set them free. If they don't come back, they were never yours to begin with. Or something to that effect. There are different variations. Your husband or wife or boyfriend or girlfriend is going to need some time to process. They're going to be angry, upset, confused, hurt. They might leave the house, slam the door, and get in the car and leave. They deserve their alone time to take it all in. Let them go for a drive. Let them go stay the night at their parents' or hang out at a sibling's place for a day or two. If they love you, they'll come back. I promise. They might be madder than a stubbed toe, but they'll come back. But if they don't come back at all and they tell you it's over, well then, good buddy, I'm sorry to tell you that maybe this happened so you could reevaluate that relationship. True love always forgives. The devil tries to convince you otherwise, but it's true. No matter what, it always does. Especially when the one who did wrong is truly, honestly sorry and repentant and asking for forgiveness. I know it's tempting to want to keep it a secret, especially now that it's a month in. You might already be on track to fixing things financially. You're starting to feel a little bit like your old self again. You know you won't gamble again, so what's the point? Why confess? Well, I'll tell you why. For one, your spouse or partner deserves to know, especially if you're married or you share finances. You're in this together, and there's probably a lot they can do to help. Spend less, be more frugal, pick up a side hustle, help manage the finances and contribute to the plan. They are your other half, your better half. That pun is not intentional. Second, they can pray for you and support you. James 5:6 says, "Therefore confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so that you may be healed. The prayer of a righteous person is powerful and effective." If you find yourself having a tough day or feeling the urge to gamble, you can lean on them. 2 strands of a rope are stronger than one. The third reason why you need to confess is because, quite literally, the truth will set you free. You will feel 100 times better once you get it all out in the open. You won't feel so alone. You won't bear the burden by yourself. You can both continue forward together. It's always easier to stand firm when you have someone standing by your side, holding you up. Come see me in the middle of an icy late winter storm here in Michigan, and I'll show you what I mean. Decide on a day and time. Maybe even plan a nice dinner. Don't do it in a restaurant because that's seriously bogue. No one wants to be blindsided by that in a public setting. But that doesn't mean you can't plan a night at home. Maybe cook together first and then talk over the meal. Before you hit them with something that they weren't expecting, remind them of why you're both so good together as a couple. Don't do the let's have fun in the sack first routine because that feels like a bribe or some kind of weird power thing. Don't do it. Cuddle and make up sex afterwards are acceptable, though. I want to hear how things go when you have that talk with your better half. You know where to find me on my website. If you don't have a significant other, then pick a person who means a lot to you in life. Maybe it's your best friend or your mom. It might be a brother or sister. If you truly don't have anyone at all that needs to be in this with you as you continue through the healing process, then I highly recommend that you attend a GA meeting or find some kind of 12-step support group or talk to a pastor at a church. Yes, it's easy to connect in online groups or message boards, but that's not the same as being with someone. To have a real human being look you in the eye and tell you that it's going to be okay, that you're not alone, is a crazy relief, and it lifts the heavy burden off of your chest. Week 5, Battle Plan, Weaponry, Reddit, and online communities. Here's one of the best ways that you can use your smartphone. Do people even call it a smartphone anymore? Because lately for me, it's been pretty dumb. Engage with people going through the same thing that you're going through. Reddit has an awesome problem gambling subreddit where you can participate in conversations there. I primarily lurk because it's wide open to the public, but I've also private chatted some folks to direct them here to this podcast to help give them hope if their post sounded down and my heart felt compelled to reach out. Sure, you can register with an anonymous name and avatar, but it is tough to share too much personal information if you're concerned about privacy because it's wide open and anyone on the internet can see it. But again, one of the best things about that subreddit is simply knowing there are hundreds of other people out there just like you, fighting the same battle, going through the same struggle. When I can, I try to contribute or provide encouragement. But it's also a great place to go when you feel the urge to gamble. All it takes is a scan of the newest post to remind you of what's at stake. Again, no pun. The stories are heartbreaking at times. Regular people like you and me who have lost thousands and thousands of dollars. Dozens of instances of everyday men and women who've recognized they hit rock bottom and they need to stop gambling. My heart goes out to each and every one of those people. Every single story is compelling and gut-wrenching. I've been there, so I understand. But once you hit the bottom, there's nowhere to go but up. That's also why I love the posts by people who are celebrating their time as a non-gambler. Whether it's 1 day bet-free or 1 year bet-free, I always upvote those posts when I'm on there because I know it's not an easy thing to accomplish. But if they can do it, so can you. There's also a fairly new subreddit called Gambling Addiction, but it's primarily the same thing with mostly the same people. If you know of any other online communities or forums, please email them to me and I'll add them to the resources page of my website. Week 5, Battle Plan, Armor, Rediscover your music. This week, we've got a fun challenge that you're going to incorporate into your healing process. Music. Music is a powerful healer for the brain, especially when used in the right way. Going forward, we're going to incorporate music back into our lives. You might be someone who already listens to a lot of music. I used to be before I discovered gambling, but I stopped. I'm not sure why exactly. I honestly think my poor brain was so overloaded that I couldn't handle any additional stimulation or emotion. But this week, we're going to use music to lift our spirits. If you're a Christian, this means listening to positive, encouraging, uplifting music. K-Love? Absolutely. Got a Christian radio station you can stream or a Spotify channel with worship music? Then let's dust that off. Here in Michigan, we have 2 stations that I love to stream. One is called Promise FM, and the other is Smile FM. You can find them online at their website and stream them yourselves. What makes me so incredibly sad to think about is the fact that up until my gambling began last summer, I used to listen to those stations and donate to them all the time. I'm back to listening to them again, and I promise you one day I'll be back in a financial place where I can donate to them again. If you aren't a Christian, think about a kind of music that makes you feel good and motivated and positive about life. Music that evokes an emotional response in you. I'm not talking about the heavy metal or grunge music, dating myself by saying that made us feel raw and emo. I'm talking about music that makes you smile, or that makes you want to get up and dance, or that reminds you of summers as a kid, or that brings back the memory of hanging out with your friends in more innocent times. Music that makes you want to sing along. Build a playlist wherever you might listen to music. You don't need to spend a ton of money on this. Listen to free apps like Spotify or Pandora. You can even build a playlist on YouTube and listen there. I love digging up old videos that MTV used to show when I was a teen. The 80s were totally rad, and the videos either make me laugh or stir up a ton of nostalgia. Me? Yeah, I am a Gen Xer. That meant music was a part of me since I was a young teen. All genres. I still have vivid memories of me feeling the angst of my teenage years with cassette tapes of 90s grunge bands like Alice in Chains, Pearl Jam, and Soundgarden. Chris Cornell, God rest his soul, was my dude. I was a huge Audioslave fan. I also loved 90s R&B like Boyz II Men and New Edition. Once I hit my 20s, though, I delved into the world of classic rock, with legends like the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, or Crosby, Stills, and Nash. When CDs started to become obsolete, I started my digital music journey with Napster, and then moved to the iPod. My decades-old iTunes library has over 1,000 songs. So for me, while occasionally I'll mix it up between my iTunes playlists and my 2 streaming Christian radio stations, I do tend to stick with Christian music. Overall, it's just better for my spirit. Whichever way you decide to play your music, your task this week is to listen to uplifting music every single day. You can have total control over how much, when, and where. Since I don't have a commute, I enjoy listening to music while I'm getting ready in the morning before work. Maybe you might prefer to listen in the car as you drive to and from your workplace. Perhaps you choose to listen while you're cooking or cutting the grass or doing household chores. I do recommend you listen earlier in the day rather than later. Music is energizing, and I wanted to help set the tone for your mood and your mental outlook. Nighttime is more for relaxing, calmer activities, so try to find some time to listen to music before 7 p.m. or find some low-key, relaxing music to listen to at night. But play your music every day. It doesn't have to be a ton. It can be 15 minutes one day, or 25 minutes the next day, and 10 minutes the day after that. Maybe a full hour on the weekends. Whatever works for you. Just start listening to music. Force yourself to do this, even if you don't think it's a critical piece of recovery, because it is. Music has the power to change our mood and emotions in only a few minutes. Not to mention, if you're a Christian, it's a powerful way to worship and give praise to God. This week, to start, I'm recommending that you listen to music every day. Do it 7 days in a row. Going forward after that, listen to as much as you need to whenever you need to. My goal is to encourage you to find your music again. Let it take you back in time to days when life was simpler, when you felt great about your world, when you had the feeling that you could do anything, be anything, and conquer anything. Back in 2015, I'd gotten into running. I began training on a treadmill in the winter and then moved to trail running in the spring and summer. I had put together a few running playlists that matched my runs with speed and tempo, and those playlists had been sitting unused, dusty, and ignored in my iTunes app. A couple weeks ago, on one down day I needed a pick-me-up. I'm not sure what prompted me to consider going to those playlists, but as I listened through each song, I remembered the way I'd conquered those runs. I pushed myself back then to achieve things that I didn't think were possible. 5Ks, 10Ks, fastest run ever, according to my Nike Run app. So many times I was on the treadmill or on a trail feeling the endorphins of my runner's high, smiling and pumping my fist in the air with my achievement. Those songs brought it all back. I am a warrior. I can overcome obstacles and navigate around things in my path that might cause me to stumble. Music reminded me of that. The last thing I want to do is overwhelm you with a laundry list of things you need to achieve, accomplish, or do every day. I don't want you to feel a sense of failure if you have a day where you can't get to the item I'm recommending you do. Honestly, it's more important that you stick to the 1 hour of technology-free time. But this idea is to simply incorporate more music into your life, and I want it to be fun. I want you to get up and dance or smile or sing or just feel good about who you are. So turn on some tunes whenever you feel like you need a mood lift, or if you want to feel good, or if you feel happy, or if you want to feel happy. And don't be afraid to dance or sing along if you feel the urge. It's definitely a healthier urge than depositing money and gambling your paycheck. Week 5, recap. Let's review and recap the 4 battle plans we're focusing on this 5th week. Battle plan, the enemy's playbook. You can keep it a secret. You can't keep it a secret. You just can't. If you truly want to heal and be free of the chains that held you prisoner, you have got to ask someone to help you unshackle those. Especially if you have a significant other or a spouse, they deserve to know what's been going on. Not to mention they can be your support. Don't let the devil try to convince you that it's okay to keep it inside forever. That's not healthy. That's not healing. Satan wants to keep you living in your own private hell of guilt and shame. Battle plan, God's intel. The truth will set you free. If you haven't shared your secret addiction with anyone, you'll be surprised at how freeing it is. You might not think so at the moment, but it's true. Telling my husband about my gambling addiction was by far one of the hardest things I'd ever done. But it was also one of the best things. I couldn't imagine how I'd be sleeping right now if I hadn't told him. Every day would still be a lie, and I'm done lying. If your loved one truly loves you, they will forgive you. They might be upset and need some space, but love covers a multitude of sins. It says that in the Bible, 1 Peter 4:8. Battle plan, weaponry, Reddit, and other online communities. Having a sense of community is imperative to your recovery to give you support and encouragement, and to remind you of what you're fighting against. Connecting with others will help you from feeling like an island, isolated, and alone. You aren't the only one going through this. There's a whole tribe of people battling the same addiction. Find them and connect with them. Whether it's the problem gambling subreddit or a small life group at your church or some other kind of online or in-person community, find your tribe. You'll be glad you did. Battle plan, armor, rediscover your music. I don't know anyone who doesn't love some kind of music. Music can evoke feelings of nostalgia, of good times in our lives, of memories from when we lived a life that we loved. Find your music again, my friends. Every day I want you to spend some time digging up old iTunes playlists or searching out your favorite song on Spotify or looking for those old MTV videos you enjoyed watching as a teen or a kid. Let the music take you back to places in your mind that made you feel good about yourself. Let it heal you. This week's Battle Box. video or podcast? First, I want to share something here that isn't written in my book. It's a video I watched just last weekend. It's from Life Church, and it went up on YouTube and also on Spotify on Sunday, March 19th, 2023, and it's called Waiting for a Miracle, Part 1. Instead of Pastor Craig delivering this message, Life Church Pastor Chris Beal gives this one. And wow, let me tell you, once again, it was as if it was directly intended for me. Church messages often do that. That's God's power at work, stirring things in your soul. I sobbed like a little baby. That message is about what happens when something painful or traumatic or tragic happens in your life that causes pain and suffering, and you're waiting on God to perform a miracle to fix it. Even though I'd seen God work true miracles plenty of times in my life, at this point of me recording this, after I finished my own 10-week recovery journey, I'm waiting on a miracle from God to fix my financial situation, which is still pretty dire. I believe He can, and He will, answer my prayers of financial healing. Even though I've stopped gambling and I know I defeated the demons, I'm still knee-deep in trying to tread water in the murky depths of debt that is still sometimes so over my head, I feel like I'm drowning. I'm going to talk more about this topic in a future episode of my podcast, but for now, if you're feeling like you're praying for a miracle and God hasn't answered yet, please go and watch or listen to that message. Second, go onto your favorite podcast platform and do a search for the After Gambling podcast. Look for episode GSS 007, which is titled Coming Clean to Your Family and Friends, from February 21st, 2018. It's only 11 minutes long, but Jamie provides some incredibly helpful advice that he heard at a GA meeting. Song. Do a search online for the song Brother by Need to Breathe, all one word. Whether you're male or female, if you're female, just change the word from brother to sister in your mind. Let this song be a reminder that you're not alone out there. This is my song to you. Quote, confession of errors is like a broom which sweeps away the dirt and leaves the surface brighter and clearer. I feel stronger for confession. Mahatma Gandhi. Bible verse. Therefore, confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so that you may be healed. The prayer of a righteous person is powerful and effective. That's James 5:16. Quick tip. Do you have any apps that didn't have self-exclusion but only had a cool down or a timeout period of 30 days? If so, we're a month in, so it's time to go back into those apps and reset the cool-off period again. Take the time to contact the 1-800-GAMBLER hotline or email your state's responsible gaming board and find out how you can exclude yourself permanently. Prayer. Father in heaven, you are my rock, my redeemer. I give you glory and praise for helping me get past this first month. You have blessed me with mercy and grace, and I know I'm winning the fight against evil. As I grow stronger and walk farther down the righteous path of light that you've laid out for me, I now want to take another big step and confess my sins to those who mean the world to me. Please, Lord, give me the wisdom to speak honestly and gently in my confession, to convey the conviction I feel about never gambling again. I pray for comfort and healing for myself and those I love. I know that true love covers a multitude of sins. The death of Jesus on the cross shows us that. I also know that in Him I have life. As long as I am still breathing, waking up every morning, your work is still being done in me. Thank you for showing me the way, the truth, and the life, Father. Thank you for loving me. It's all because of Jesus, and in His name I pray. Amen.
Like holy water, like salt on a burn, rain in a drought, it's all over.